Welcome to the Cook Who Can't Eat podcast, where we're making food, family, and life a little easier, one bite at a time.
Hello, friend. I'm so glad you're here. This episode's going to be a little different. You may have heard of the controversy happening between Candace Owens and the disabled community. Well, this happened a couple of weeks ago, and some may say that this conversation is too late. I disagree. I think this type of conversation and education needs to continue. Chronic illness and disabilities have long been treated like something shameful or that should be hidden away. It's usually not until a celebrity comes forward with a diagnosis that we can finally discuss that condition. Christopher Reeves brought our attention to spinal cord injuries, paralyzation, and even access for wheelchair users. It was rare to hear about Parkinson's before Michael J. Fox came forward with his battle. This unfortunate pattern has continued with Lady Gaga and fibromyalgia, Selena Gomez and Lupus, Lil Wayne and epilepsy, Bella Hadid and Lyme disease, Gigi Hadid and Hashimoto's disease. Lena Dunham with endometriosis, MS came into focus with Selma, Blair, and Christina Applegate. In fact, it wasn't until Christina Applegate participated in the backlash against Candace Owens that she and her team stopped, really looked at the ad, and realized what it was actually for. Although these individuals are using their notoriety and celebrity status for good and bringing attention to the realities of these diseases and the battle, no one should have to wait for a celebrity to be diagnosed with their condition before we can talk about it and learn about it. If for no other reason, we wouldn't wish our battle and our struggle on anyone. I ask that you listen to today's episode, share it with your people, and continue these conversations so we can help others understand the unique challenges that this community faces every day. This is an open letter to Candace Owens and all able-bodied media. Candace, this letter has taken me longer than planned. However, I could only move as fast as my body and my mind would allow. And I wanted to make sure I gave this the attention and respect it deserves, so I didn't miss anything important, like the point. Recently, you shared your very negative reaction to a Skims ad that featured a woman in a wheelchair. Rather than look at the ad, you just assumed it was another poor attempt at inclusivity in advertising. The thought never even crossed your mind that the advertisement could be for adaptable clothing. And it was the absence of that consideration that made it fair and correct when the disabled community labeled you an ableist. Your response to the backlash was another podcast episode where you again proclaimed that representation doesn't matter. In fact, it wasn't until later in a Twitter exchange with Christina Applegate that you finally stopped and realized what the ad was for. In your original video, you asked for education, and I genuinely believe that you deserve and need exactly that. If you're ready to listen for understanding and not just waiting to respond, I will share with you 3 of the things that I think you really need to understand. It's impossible for me or anyone else really to fully explain the realities of a disabled life. So I'm going to walk you through these concepts within the context of something I know that you are very well versed in, capitalism. To level set our conversation, our working definition of capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the production and creation of goods and services for profit in a competitive market, where prices and wages are dictated by supply and demand. In February of 2019, you told Fox News that capitalism is what makes America great. It's what creates jobs, drives innovation, and lifts people out of poverty. We need to defend it and promote it because it's the engine that drives our economy. As you know, it's only through diverse thought and offerings that businesses can actually experience the growth and stability they need to survive in today's economy. I found it interesting when you also told Fox News that capitalism is being able to appeal to everyone. And if you're not appealing to someone, you're not doing it right. You further supported that concept in September of 2019 when you said, I think that businesses should be doing anything and everything they can to grow, to create jobs, to drive innovation, to help their communities. It's the responsibility of business owners to do whatever they can to succeed and make a positive impact in the world. You also pointed out that minority communities represent a huge market opportunity for businesses. By reaching out to those communities and building trust, businesses can grow and build long-term relationships with customers. If you believe that to be true, and I think you do, how would inclusion in advertising be pandering or wrong? In support of this, you told Fox News in August of 2019, rural communities are often overlooked by big business, but they represent a huge market opportunity. By creating products and services that meet the unique needs of rural Americans, businesses can drive growth and build stronger, more vibrant communities. From August 2019 to March of 2021, you seem to use that statement as a template to issue almost identical statements of support for the middle class, Africa diaspora, LGBTQ, parents, Asian Americans, Latinos, veterans, Black people, working class, Generation Z, and single moms. Each of these communities does represent a large market opportunity. Rather than try and understand them all, let's look at moms and examine maternity wear, since that market also requires adaptable clothing. When I had my first baby almost 21 years ago, maternity wear was primarily available at niche retailers and from catalogs. Larger businesses like Target were starting to explore the market with small line launches. However, maternity wear was still not considered a mainstream or everyday product line. It wasn't until more companies like Target, The Gap, or Old Navy began offering lines with more selection and at lower price points that the extent of the demand was actually realized. Even now, the maternity wear market is growing 6.7% year over year. The traditional retail clothing market only grows at 1.96% year over year. And the maternity wear market is projected to reach $44 billion in 2023. Interestingly, we're told that in order to succeed, they needed to target their advertising directly to pregnant women. However, there are concerns about businesses targeting the disabled community. However, both segments face similar challenges, like the need for adaptable clothing and the importance of inclusion in advertising. According to the US Census Bureau and the CDC, approximately 26% of the US population has a disability. That means there are consistently over 87 million people in the US who may benefit from adaptable clothing and supplies. While maternity wear market is needed by only 3 to 4% of the population at any given time. You've been very vocal about businesses that cater to the disabled community, calling their efforts virtue signaling. You've argued for inclusion and innovation in various market segments, but the discriminatory statements towards the disabled community show, honestly, a complete disregard for the potential growth and profitability of that adaptable clothing market. In a tweet from 2020, you said, "No one is forcing anyone to make clothes for people with disabilities. Why should companies be expected to invest in a market that has such a small ROI? If there are 87 million Americans that could potentially benefit from adaptable clothing and only 4 million that may need maternity wear, fair to say that the adaptable clothing market is not a small opportunity." In August of 2020 on YouTube, you discussed how businesses can reach new markets. Differences can be a huge market opportunity for businesses. By understanding their unique needs and preferences of different cultures, businesses can create products and services that appeal to new audience and drive growth. Disability and pregnancy may not be cultures. However, they do have unique needs and preferences. In 2020, when you made that statement, the disabled community's buying power for that year was $490 billion. In a joint study conducted by the National Retail Federation and American Marketing Association, they found that only 11 to 15% of disabled individuals feel they have adequate options for clothing and footwear. Adaptive clothing has historically been hard to find, offered only in limited quantities and sizes, and usually geared towards the elderly. There is nothing but opportunity in this segment. Target introduced an adaptable clothing line for kids in 2017. The line was designed with input from families with children with disabilities, and it received positive feedback for both its affordability and inclusivity. The introduction of the adaptive clothing line helped Target increase their market share in the disabled community, and their commitment to inclusivity has actually helped them differentiate themselves from competitors. When it came time to advertise this new line, Target decided and made it known that the advertising campaign would feature children with various disabilities, and the ads were widely praised for their representation of disability and inclusivity. Target's decision to introduce this clothing line with inclusive advertising was not only a positive move for social and moral reasons, but it was also a very sound business decision. The adaptive clothing line provided a unique offering in the market, giving Target a competitive edge and helping them tap into an underserved market that has significant buying power. The disabled community is loyal. We're brand conscious, we're diverse, and we support and invest in the companies that invest in us. Despite this type of proven success, in June of 2020, you tweeted, "Diversity and inclusion is now being used as a marketing strategy. We need to give back to the days where businesses focused on creating the best products possible, not pandering to social justice warrior ideology." This statement and others you've made since then directly contradicts your statements in support for capitalism, where you state that businesses aren't doing something right if they aren't appealing to everyone. In a capitalist society, advertising is vital. It's how businesses communicate to the public and potential customers. It's how they have a voice. It's been proven repeatedly that people want to see people that look like them in advertising. It helps them feel understood, represented, included, and it sends a message that they're valued not just as a customer, but as an individual. This is how businesses can build the know-like trust that is necessary for purchase. The advertisement that started all this was for an adaptive line of clothing and intimate wear by Skims. I get it, you're not a Kim Kardashian fan. That's fine. She's not really my cup of tea either. However, whether it was her or someone on her team, that advertisement displayed a culmination of good. Not only did they develop a line of adaptive clothing and intimate wear, but they ignored the Hollywood version of disability representation and used a model that is an actual wheelchair user. This may not sound important, but it is. Only 2.7% of all characters portrayed in TV, movies, and advertising are written to have a disability. And 95% of those roles are played by able-bodied actors. Say what you will about Kim Kardashian, but someone at Skims got this right. They created a line of adaptable clothing. They used an actual wheelchair user in the advertising, and they created advertising with the same message of female beauty and empowerment as their other products. In May of 2021, you tweeted, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to see an Asian person playing Harriet Tubman in a movie, and I don't want to see an Asian person playing Black Panther either. We need to stop pretending that race is just a costume we try on and off at will." That is a fair statement, but why would you think it's any different for the disabled community? We don't stop being disabled when the camera turns off. We can't go home at the end of a hard day and just suddenly be better. We don't want to see an able-bodied person trying to portray what a disability looks like. Not serving the disabled community is bad capitalism and it's bad business. Inclusivity and accessibility are crucial components for a business to have success in today's market. When businesses don't meet the needs of the disabled community, they're actually missing out on a customer base of 87 million people just in the US that have a buying power of more than $490 billion. This is exactly where businesses should be paying attention and should be innovating in a capitalist market. Now it's time to move on to the second thing you should really know. Adaptations and accessibility does not take anything away from able-bodied individuals. It just makes everything accessible to everyone. In April of 2018, you criticized the idea of providing special accommodations for disabled people, saying, why should non-disabled people have to accommodate the needs of disabled people? It's not fair to ask them to give up their time, resources, or opportunities just because someone else has a disability. Why are accommodations for the disabled community so offensive to you? I don't understand that. Because you criticize the idea of making even buildings and public spaces more accessible. In a tweet from 2018 where you said the entire country will be kneeling to help a handful of people with disabilities. It's lunacy. This statement is not only insensitive, but it also shows a lack of understanding of the challenges individuals with disabilities face and a lack of understanding of just how large the disabled community is. In October of that same year, you criticized a proposal to make playgrounds more accessible for disabled children. It's a nice idea, but not worth the cost. Playground equipment is already expensive enough without adding all the special accommodations for disabled children. Wow. That same month, you spoke out against accommodation for athletes, saying, why should non-disabled athletes have to compete against athletes with disabilities? It's not fair to ask them to give up their time, resources, and opportunities just because someone else has a disability. You really do like templating your statements. A couple days later, you follow up saying, why should non-disabled students have to sacrifice their time, resources, and opportunities to accommodate the needs of disabled students? It's not fair to ask them to give up what they have earned just because someone else has a disability. But see, here's the thing. Including disabled kids in schools, sports, or even playground activities can have numerous benefits for the non-disabled children, both in and out of school. By interacting with disabled children, non-disabled children can develop empathy and understanding towards others. A study published in the Journal of Educational Psychology found that non-disabled students in inclusive classrooms had greater empathy and understanding towards disabled peers compared to those in non-inclusive classrooms. Inclusive schools and sports teams require cooperation, communication, and teamwork, which can help the non-disabled children develop social and leadership skills. They can also learn to work with others who may have diverse needs, personalities, and abilities, like they will when they get out into the real world. A study published by the International Journal of Inclusive Education found that non-disabled students in inclusive classrooms had better social skills and were more accepting of diversity than those in non-inclusive classrooms. In the classroom, teachers may use different methods, tools, and materials to accommodate the needs of disabled students, which can actually enhance the learning experience for all of the students. A study conducted by the National Center of Educational Outcomes found that inclusive education had positive effect on academic achievement for both disabled and non-disabled students, and that inclusive education can actually promote positive attitudes towards disability and diversity among the non-disabled students. By including disabled children in schools and sports, non-disabled children aren't losing anything. They're gaining so much, and they're learning the skills that will help them become advocates for diversity and disability in school, in life, and in the world. It's very clear that while you support select minorities and communities, the disabled community is not one of them, because for some reason, accommodations are, in your mind, unreasonable. Or so I thought. In a tweet from February of 2021, you argued that businesses should provide accommodations for pregnant employees. You said, pregnancy is not a disability, but it is a temporary condition that requires accommodations. Businesses should be happy to make small allowances for pregnant employees to ensure their comfort and safety. First, pregnancy can be considered a disability at times. Second, I'm really starting to believe that this may be your fatal flaw. You don't know the actual definition of disabled or disability. So you're probably unaware that more than 50% of all working adults will at some point in their career experience a disability or debilitating event that lasts longer than 90 days. However, that same group of people, 65% of them, are not at all prepared for a disability or a debilitating event that could last more than 90 days. The actual definition of disabled or disability is that you're experiencing an instance or event that prevents and interferes with work and daily life activities. Simple, straightforward. Disabilities can be short-term, like pregnancy or recovering from an illness. Long-term disabilities can include fighting cancer, recovering from traumatic accidents or events, while permanent disabilities are things like chronic illness, MS, or traumatic brain injury. If you can work through your pregnancy without any issues, then it's not a debilitating event. However, why should pregnant women be given accommodations that you believe should be denied to disabled individuals? Don't disabled individuals also deserve accommodations to ensure their comfort and safety? In an interview with Joe Rogan in September of 2019, you expressed skepticism about the need for special accommodations for disabled people, arguing that it creates a culture of victimhood. You said, I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to help people that are disabled, but I do think it's gone too far. And we're not creating a culture of problem solving. We're creating a culture of victimhood, where it's like, oh, I can't do this because I'm disabled. There is extensive research that shows that this is not how disabled individuals react. They actually tend to downplay their symptoms, sometimes to their own demise. This can vary depending on the specific disability or individual circumstances. However, the research suggests that this is happening and is common among the disabled community. One study published in the Journal of Disability and Rehabilitation found that up to 69% of MS patients reported downplaying their symptoms to healthcare professionals. Another study published by the Journal of Pain and Symptom Management found that up to 50% of individuals with chronic pain downplayed their symptoms to their doctors. However, you seem to believe that pregnant women are the ones that actually think that way and that accommodations should be willingly and happily made. You can't ask for support and accommodations for one group while criticizing another for asking for the exact same thing, especially when you consider the fact that people don't choose to become disabled, but most do choose whether or not to become pregnant. This leads me to the third thing I think you should know. In an interview with Fox News in July of 2019, you supported diversity, saying, I think diversity is important, but it's not diversity of skin color, it's diversity of thought. We need people from diverse backgrounds, different experiences, different educations, different walks of life to come together and share ideas. That's fair. That's exactly how we learn and innovate and grow as humans. It's how Target developed their adaptive clothing line. In a tweet from May of 2021, you wrote, diversity is good when it happens organically. It's bad when it's forced upon us. No one is calling for diversity in sports teams because that would be stupid. The same is true for companies. Hire the best candidate for the job, period. Again, fair. Qualifications should be what leads a lot of those decisions. Then in July of 2019, you tweeted, we should strive for equal opportunity, not equal outcomes. If someone with a disability cannot access a building, it's not the responsibility of the building owner to provide extensive modifications. It's the responsibility of the disabled individual to find a building that meets their needs. This is where your argument starts to fall apart. It's impossible to have true diversity of thought if you're excluding 26% of the population. In June of 2020, you even criticized the Americans with Disabilities Act, tweeting, "The ADA has been weaponized to impose costly and unnecessary regulations on businesses. If someone cannot enter your store or office because of a disability, they should simply shop elsewhere. It's not the responsibility of every business to cater to every possible customer." And this is where the bottom falls out. If someone in a wheelchair is the best candidate for the job, how do you hire them and how do they work if they can't access the building? You're a mom. What would you do if the care your child needs is in a building or an office that you couldn't access? If capitalism is driven by innovation, how do you educate the students that need accommodations while learning? Do they not deserve the same educational opportunities? You were actually the one that said that nobody deserves equal outcomes, but they do deserve equal opportunities. But by preventing access to many buildings, stores, offices, and jobs, you're preventing exactly that. It was proven long ago that separate but equal isn't equal. Some accommodations are necessary to protect the disabled individual and the non-disabled community. For instance, a couple years ago, there was a woman who passed out behind the wheel from a complication with diabetes. She crashed into the back of a truck that was sitting at a light and unfortunately killed a 38-year-old father, stepfather, and husband. There was no malice. There was no intent, just illness. I haven't been able to drive in 3 years. Between the complications of my chronic illness, my disabilities, and some medications I have to take, it's not safe for me to be behind the wheel. Unfortunately, that means that a lot of accommodations have to be made for myself and my family, including telemedicine. During lockdowns, everyone got very familiar with that type of accommodation. I can't help but think about the song from Hamilton, "The Room Where It Happens." If a job or medical care or opportunity for diversity of thought are all in a building that's inaccessible, it's impossible for 26% of the population to be in the room where it happens, which means you don't actually have complete and true diversity. Imagine if Stephen Hawking, Franklin Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, Edwin Kurtz, Ralph Braun, Richard Leakey, or Gustav Kirchhoff weren't given the necessary accommodations to be in the room. Our world would look very different. No one is disabled by choice. This life is a level of hard that I'm not sure I could ever articulate, and I didn't really even know existed. The unknowns, the loss, the guilt, the fear, the mental and financial toll, it's impossible to explain. And unfortunately, you don't get it unless you get it. And we don't want you to get it. The only thing we do want is the opportunity to be able to live, not just survive. And sometimes that requires accommodations, like adaptable clothing. Here are a few things you should know about disabled life. In most cases, you must have worked a minimum of 10 years before you would even be eligible for Social Security disability. You cannot apply for SSDI until 6 months after your date of disability. And once you apply, it can take weeks, months, years to finally be approved. In fact, less than 30% of all applications are even approved on the first filing. After 24 months on Social Security disability, you are required to go on Medicare. If you refuse, you can lose your disability benefit. And Medicare is not free. They withhold the $164.90 a month from your disability check. If you have COBRA or other health coverage, once you become Medicare eligible, you can lose your eligibility on those plans. If you're utilizing COBRA, there is a disability extension available. If approved, you get an additional 11 months where you can continue to participate in the group health plan. You're still going to be paying that 100% of the premium. That 2% admin fee jumps to 50%. if the disabled person stays on the policy. Through an addendum, the COBRA law allows companies to charge disabled people a 50% admin fee. That's the actual definition of extortion, by the way. According to a report from the Kaiser Family Foundation, the average monthly premium for COBRA coverage in 2021 was $1,847. Now, if you're on the disability extension, you are now going to have an administrative fee of $923.50. That's more than car payments. That's more than mortgage payment for a lot of people. Now, your COBRA monthly cost is $2,770.50. By the way, the average Social Security disability benefit amount is $1,358 per month. Did you know that 65% of all homeless are disabled? 67% of bankruptcies are due to medical bills. 46% of foreclosures are due to medical bills. 20% of disabled individuals can't get the care they need because of a lack of transportation. 25% aren't getting the care they need because they can't afford it. 28% are not taking all of their prescribed medications, again, because of cost. 40% of our community can't afford their rent, mortgage, or a consistently safe place to live. 50% of us can't afford to pay all of our monthly bills every month. We are 2 times more likely to live in poverty. We're 3 times more likely not to have enough food. We're 4 times more likely to commit suicide. And we're 5 times more likely to develop severe mental issues. In your representation doesn't matter episode, you repeatedly stated that not everything is meant for everyone. If you're diabetic, that ice cream ad is not for you. If you're bald, that shampoo commercial is not for you. Those analogies make a lot of sense, but saying a bra and underwear ad is not for those in wheelchairs doesn't. Let's put that behind us, shall we? And we're going to agree that moving forward, anytime you see an ad portraying someone with a disability, it's not for you. Move along. You have no comment or opinion that matters here, and it shouldn't be shared because it's not for you. Honestly, it should have been very obvious that the Skims ad was not for you, even if you missed the entire point of it. You were so focused on playing content police that you missed an amazing and wonderful thing. A company that created an advertisement featuring a disabled woman to share a new adaptable clothing line. It is amazing to see adaptable undergarments and clothing that don't look like they were designed for a 90-year-old, which would eliminate the need or lessen the need for help changing on those really bad days, and that is being advertised with the correct representation and messaging. In your exchange with Christina Applegate, you made these 2 comments. What we thought it was at the time was another nonsensical Representation Matters DEI initiative, which I strongly feel patronizes the people it purports to represent. Example, clinically obese people modeling swimsuits. This wasn't that, and we simply got it wrong. You then said, we create a show 5 days a week. It's an impossibility that we would not at some point make an honest mistake. If you felt personally targeted by this mistake, I apologize to you. We simply did not know, the ad did not state, that the underwear was created for disabled access. I suppose that was your somewhat version of an apology, but just so you know, it really wasn't. I am hopeful that you took the time to listen, and now you feel at least a little more educated on this situation and the disabled community. Why what you did was ableist behavior, the damage that that type of discrimination does, and that accommodations is not a dirty word and does not take from one to give to the other. Use this to do better next time. Be better. Hold yourself accountable. You may even realize why the backlash from the disability community was so severe and possibly even issue an actual apology. Anytime we're exposed to something new, there are questions and uncertainties. I would welcome any opportunity to provide you with more information, answer questions, or just talk through this. I'm always open to a conversation.
Thank you for being here, my friend. I'm so glad you were able to join me. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform because you're not going to want to miss the next episode where we're going to talk about accessible cooking.